so it's midnight and we're on a very misty Ilkley moor doing classic sort of rocky flow single track. And I have to say, big volume tyres and the way the suspension opens up when you hit a bigger block, it doesn't half carry speed well for the class of bike it is.
My name's Guy Kesteven. I've been a professional bike tester for nearly 25 years, and I've just taken custody of a brand new Santa Cruz Blur 100mm XC bike, X01 Reserve Axis spec. So, top of the range flagship XC bike. And it's just past the longest day of the year, so I figure it's time for a bit of an adventure. See how it rides. Oh, all my mates have left, so I best, well, should be on the ideal bike for chasing them down anyway. And it started raining, just on cue. Perfect. Thanks, Yorkshire.
Oh, 15 minutes. 5k in. First impressions. I'm not surprised that it feels effortless to pedal, because 10.47 before I loaded it up in terms of kilos. But I'm just amazed how fluid and supple it feels. This is just such a floater. I mean, obviously it's got those 32mm sis and big volume Maxxis 2.4 tyres on there, but sheesh, this is just like a hovercraft goes over. Okay, so half an hour in, it's coming up to 12k done. We're into the back of Stainburn now, and I'm really having to concentrate to throttle this back. It's really not been sensible. It just goes so quickly, so easily. Gotta stop getting carried away. Bad habits, guys, bad habits. You've got a long night ahead of you. And now we're into proper Stainburn single track, so bearing in mind it's raining for the first part of the ride, and this is a fairly twitchy 68.3 degree head angle on this 100mm bike, and these Aspen tyres have basically no tread on them, so got to be a little bit ginger. And there is a little bit of slew, you can feel it on the back. Occasionally that rear tyre, you can just feel the way it slides wide compared to the front, but through the feel through these flat bars and this skinny fork is surprisingly accurate and letting me get away with the tighter, sillier lines, but super playful. And now we're dropping out onto the red descent. Right, so 100mm of travel, 100mm of dropper. Not a lot of stroke going on anywhere, but what suspension you have is impressive. I'd maybe add a clicker rebound, because the fact it's got stay based flex rather than pivot seems to give a bit of kickback like it always does. And I am conscious there's a saddle between my thighs rather than totally slammed, but oh, this oh, this is a little joy around here. A lot more front end corrections obviously, because it's not some slacked out enduro beast, but woohoo! Oh, the pop and the way it carries speed in between is I'm tempted to say dangerous. It's, I may easily overreach this rubber, but having said that, so far plenty of feedback to play with, and when I'm targeting a line, it's taken it really accurately so far, so let's just easy off. No need for heroics on a marathon. Oh, I landed that well, really well. I mean, obviously it's not a big PP, but Santa Cruz have worked to make this super light suspension as capable as possible. It's actually the same shock stroke as the tall boy, but obviously the angles and everything are very, very different, even though the travel isn't that different in the end. She couldn't work out where to go through there, but oh, front wheel slip, there's the first one. Just caught that lack of tread the wrong side of a rock and it just chamfered off, but that's no surprise really. Oh, it naturally wants me to do the Sendy line, so yeah, you know, that's kind of the best way to test a bike almost, what lines it instinctively puts you on. You know, this is happy going wide, ticking the drops and slaps on the racing line, and then cutting in on the turns where perhaps a more hesitant XC bike, you know, I'd be taking smarter, smoother lines, to be honest. But yeah, this is attacking this descent pretty hard. No, Lord knows how much of it you can actually see. It's pretty much a tunnel of foliage at the moment. It's staying burnt, so maybe I'll just have to take my word for it. And that double twist lock, remote lockout, a real help on little steep road jabs like this. Proper racer rigid. But with a blowout valve, just in case you forget before you launch back it down. It's a RockShox, remote working RockShox fork and damper. There's none of the nonsense out of that Merida or the YT Izzo. RockShox remote working fork. Super easy, push button double release when it's time to power dive into the next descent. Damn, this thing picks up speed quickly. And it's really well balanced front to rear. Another advantage having double-ended RockShox, I reckon. Okay, so about 25k in now, about an hour and 3/4, and as those numbers suggest, that means we've been mostly climbing, a fair bit of technical single track as well, which means I've learned a lot about the pedalling already. And I'm seriously impressed, because obviously this isn't a VPP like the previous Blur, which is how they've saved 300 grams off that frame. So you're not getting that mechanical double linkage advantage, changing the axle path. But it feels very similar underneath you. So you've got a really good kind of positive early stroke pedaling feel. And actually, you know, with a relatively steep seat angle, well, for a cross-country bike at least, definitely feels like it's driving you forwards. Yeah, really accurate. Kind of loads of pedal feedback. I mean, occasionally spits traction, and surprisingly with these tyres on freshly wet routes, but overall great traction feedback, you know, really easy to work with the back end. And then once it kind of gets through into the mid-stroke, it starts hitting these square edge bumps. It feels a lot more open and capable, so really carries speed well down this random rubbly stuff. And because it deals with it so well, there's less chance of it knocking you offline either. So again, more speed, more control. You know, and this isn't designed as a trail bike, you know, this is even the trail version. They still call it a race bike, but for more challenging terrain. So the fact it does deal with this really well is pretty damn impressive. Oh. Through the bog. This place is never dry. Again, you know, nice and positive under power, and that steep head angle means that, yes, you can squeeze it round, tight climbing, switchback like that. And if you notice there, a lot of bikes at this weight are kind of just bowed out shape, twanged off line and have dabbed. But this really held shape as I leveraged the torque through it. Another plus point for the Blur. Okay, so 40k in, it's 11:30, and just stopping for proper energy food with a lovely view of Keighley, which you've all agreed is better at night. Sorry, Keighley. Okay, so it's midnight and we're on a very misty Ilkley Moor, doing classic sort of rocky flow single track. And I have to say, big volume tyres and the way the suspension opens up when you hit a bigger block, it does not carry speed well for the class of bike it is. Keeping pace with much bigger travel stuff. They've just got this effortless kind of lightness of touch. What it lacks in stability, you get paid back in agility, so it's really easy to flick and switch around on lines. Happy days! Oh, I tell you what, it's absolutely bloody loving this flowing single track. Only issue is if you scuff a rock with the front tyre, it does send you sideways. And if you know where we are now, you'll know that things are about to get a little rowdy. Certainly for a super light 100mm travel XC bike. So I'm not gonna go totally crazy through these rocks. These aspens, yeah, they're only a 700g tyre, but having said that, having them on these new reserve 28 wheels gives them hopefully a better chance of survival, because they're designed to be kind of deliberately smooth, still super light. I mean, they're under sub 1400 grams for the full wheel set, sub 400 grams, well under 400 grams. Can't remember the exact figures. I'm trying to concentrate on those dodging rocks for the rim, but yeah, very light wheel set. You know, even lighter than the old reserve 25s, but with that 28mm internal and a whole new rim profile that makes them stiffer laterally and more compliant vertically. Yeah, that old cliche, but they do feel fabulous. And this whole bike just flows and dances through stuff, but not in a, I mean, yeah, it's lively, really lively and poppy, but when you really need it, it's kind of, oh, hello, excuse me, when you really need it to find some control and calmness, it does do it surprisingly well. Where are we going now? I think I'm still on the track. It's a while since I've done it at night. There's one key area I have to get right, that's it, that's the turn, because otherwise you overshoot. A little bridge section, which we should get straight onto now. There we go. Whee! And as long as you remember to lean these aspens, you don't try and turn them when you're upright, there is actually a reasonable amount of grip. And I have to say, these Sid SLs, I mean, they're seriously like 1400 gram forks, but in terms of the damping, there's a lot of, you know, there's a fair bit of twang under braking, but in terms of the damping, pretty damn impressive. Pretty damn impressive. Woo! Yes, Blur. And another thing that helps add a bit more control and stability for this Blur at speed is the fact it's got a reasonable reach. So 470mm on this large. So even though you've only got a skinny little fork, it's basically a biro damper in it up front. It is a bit further away, so you've just got a bit more time to react. Things start to get squirrely, but as you can see, it is very happy getting the move on through the darkness, heading down off the moor. Super impressed with this bike for a first ride. I mean, you know, I wasn't expecting them to have made a dud, but it could have felt quite generic because there's a lot of people using this platform, but far from it. Very definitely still a Santa Cruz Summer. It's definitely still got that suspension feel, which is remarkable because it's a completely different suspension setup, but it's got that really kind of punchy feel, but with that excellent rollover. Oh, hang on, I've gone off course again. Okay, it's coming up to 66k in. It's 2:15 in the morning. Been going just over 4.5 hours ride time, and we've just done a chunk of technical climbing. And this bike has just made a mockery of it. Horrible loose cobbly section. We go down? Yeah. Horrible, long, extended, loose cobble section. You know, to be fair, I had a couple of moments where I thought it was going to choke on the back tyre, on the rock, but actually just coped with it totally fine. It just didn't slow down, that's the key thing. Just sat in the gear. Even when it ramped up, it was just like, yeah, we got this. A little bit more pressure on the pedals, but it does so much with whatever wattage you feed into it, and just the poise, and it's just super easy to ride. That's what I'm really finding. I mean, you know, Rab Wardell just jumped on his Blur pretty much straight away, won the Glentress 7 on it. I mean, obviously he's an incredible athlete, but even so, that's remarkable. And he didn't just win the solo, he won the team category as well. So yeah, well, that's proper flexing for a brand new cross-country bike. I reckon it's time for some more pies. Overlooking Otley from here on the Chevin. Pies. It's 3:30. We're 85k in. It's been raining for a couple of hours pretty hard now, which is why I haven't done much filming. Bike is still absolutely flawless and absolutely flying. I'm so impressed with the way the suspension feels. It's like there's a really supportive section just after the sag, so you've got a little smooth hammock of comfort and traction. You can just fly along stuff like this on, but then push it into a corner or really dig on the pedals and it's rock solid, unless it gets a proper like high-speed hit, and then it's just sweetness and light, just sucks it up. Such a good job.
So that didn't quite end the way we wanted, really. Well, I mean, we've had a fantastic ride. I think it's ended up about 108k, mostly off-road, practically all off-road. Some great single track, superb techie descents, big old loop around some of our favourite trails, and that Blur was absolutely outrageous, ridiculously quick the whole way around. If it wasn't so damn light, I'd be convinced that Santa Cruz had actually hidden some kind of motor in there. The speed, that was just climbs, out of corners, everything. It's just been flying all night. But and obviously, you know, Dickon's been riding the older Blur as well, so there's a ton of tech and a load of parallels, and I've got some questions to ask the Santa Cruz guys as well, the designers, to really drill down into this bike. So, you know, I was hoping this was going to be kind of a quite a jolly midsummer, beautiful sunrise, beautiful sunset video epic, but it's turned out to be something a little more sort of typically English. So frankly, I'm sopping wet. I need to go and get changed. So to wrap up, massive thanks to Santa Cruz for lending me this blur. I'm going to be getting a proper tech talk round, proper review on it as well. As soon as I've spent some good time drilling down into the riding. Massive thanks to Giro for sponsoring the channel. Thanks to PE's, whose lube definitely helped tonight. And thanks to Crudcatcher, whose crud guard I really should have fitted before we set off, but I didn't think it was going to be this wet. And anyway, massive thanks to my patrons. Those guys pledge every month to help support the channel. So if you really like what I'm doing, please consider joining on Patreon for a very small monthly fee, and that really helps the channel grow. What also helps the channel grow is you subscribing, clicking for notifications, giving this video a thumbs up, and yeah, telling your mates about it. But for now, I've been Guy Kestevan, knocking out 108k of premium cross-country and, well, some quite techie trails as well on Santa Cruz, brand new Blur, through the middle of the night, somewhere near the summer solstice. Because why not?